Matthew 24. We are going to read in order to understand the context of it. Yes, the first portion of Matthew 24, verse 1 and 2 is talking about the destruction of the temple, right? And we know that that has been fulfilled by AD 70. But then verse 3, if you look at, Jesus Christ is now on the Mount Olives, right? Mount Olives. So this is the maybe just before his crucifixion. He's sitting there, disciples came, and in order to understand the context, in order to understand this passage, it is good to know the context, and the context is determined by that verse 3. Verse 3 is saying something to us. The question of the disciples were this: tell us when these things will be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age. So they want to know when these things are going to take place, or when the sign of when the age will end. What are the sign of the end of the age? What are the sign of your coming? Right? Coming, because right now we have to understand this is Jewish people. This is disciples. Disciples are there. Jesus presented the kingdom to Israel, but Israel rejected the offer of the kingdom. Matthew 13, therefore, Jesus starts speaking in parables. And in Matthew 21, if you read, we see Jesus promise that I am going to take this kingdom and give to people who will produce fruits, that God is going to add Gentiles, part of the kingdom. And that means disciples learned that Jesus is not going to establish the kingdom right now. The age will not end right now. Now they want to know, so if the kingdom is not going to be established right now, you tell us when that is going to be. What are the signs? So these are the issues at stake in Matthew 24. So let's look at Matthew 24. We are reading from verse 3 on. But before we read verse 3 on, I want you to understand what is the division of this passage, right? Yes, this passage has tribulation period. Basically, we read about tribulation period, but there is a first half and a second half of the tribulation, right? First half and a second half. How do we know that Matthew 24 is divided into two? That is by looking at verse 15. So let's look at with me verse 15, right? Verse 15. Can you read verse 15?
So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand.
Yes.
Then those who are.
Yes. So verse 15 tells, yes, that is it is quoting an idea from Daniel 9, where we already looked at that Antichrist makes a covenant with Jewish people. But in the middle of the week, that is after 3.5 years, Antichrist will break the covenant, and the abomination that causes desolation will stand in the holy place. So that is the middle of the tribulation. That means verse 15 describes or talks about the breakage. So the verses above 15 is the first half of the tribulation. Verses later 15 or after 15 are the second half of the tribulation. Second half of the tribulation. So that is what Jesus says in this Matthew 24. So Matthew 24 is talking about tribulation period as the sign of the end of the age. All right. Now let's read quickly to understand this. Can anyone you read? One of you please read from verse 4 onwards. Can you read?
Matthew 24.
Yes, 4 onwards.
Jesus answered, "Watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name claiming, 'I am the Messiah,' and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things
Yes,
must happen."
let me just talk a few things. Jesus says, many will come in my name. I am the Christ. I am the Messiah. I am the Savior. And of course, this is the time that one person primarily coming, Antichrist, he is going to claim that he is the he is the Prince of Peace. He is the Messiah. He is the deliverer of Israel. So the warning is given to Jewish people. The word of Christ is who understand clearly. Jewish people understand. Many are going to say, I am the Messiah, and are going to lead many astray. So clearly communicating to the people, many people among you are going to be deceived, because people are coming to you and say, I am the Messiah. All right. Now what happens? Let's read rest.
You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come.
Yes, the end is not yet. So he says, this is the, in a sense, he says, this is the beginning of the end, but this is not the end at all. So the wars and the rumors of war, right? The claim that many will come and claim that I am the Christ, I am the Messiah, is simply the beginning of the end, right?
Aren't we going through these times now?
No, we are not.
Okay.
We are not, because this is talking about this particular beginning part of the tribulation period. Let's read again.
You'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed.
Yes.
Such things must happen.
Yes. So understand. We don't want to be fooled, right? Because wars were there from the beginning, right? I mean, how wars, earthquake, and famine were there like hundreds and thousands of years before, right? But this is particularly at the end time, it is going to increase so much that everywhere, every nation is ready to fight a war, because that's the way Antichrist is going to come into the scene for the world peace, right? So this is not the signs today. This is where we all, or most people, misunderstand. The moment they hear wars and rumors of wars, suddenly they come, okay, do we hear wars? Do we hear earthquake? Even yesterday or somewhere, there was a huge earthquake in Taiwan, right? I mean, yes, it was a huge one. So yes, you might hear these things, but that has been there from the beginning onwards. Even before Jesus coming to this world, there was earthquake, there was volcanic eruptions, all these kinds of things were there. But this is at the end time, it is going to be, as we headed to tribulation, this is going to be so much. Now let's read again.
Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains.
Yes, or birth pangs, right? Or birth pains. See, remember, these are the beginning of the birth pangs, means beginning of the tribulation. So the signs that are described above are the beginning. See, that is, so verse 6 says, the end is not yet. Verse 8 says, it is the beginning of the birth pains. That is, it's the beginning of the great tribulation, right? So the beginning portion of the tribulation followed by a great tribulation. So Matthew 24 is that those verses above are not talking about today's condition. That is talking about the condition at the end of the age when Antichrist is going to appear before the world, because nations are waging war, and he's the one who offers peace to all people and claim that I am the Messiah. I am the Messiah to Jewish people, and they are going to accept it. That is what we read in Daniel. Jesus warns here because readily this is in the mind of Jesus. Daniel 9, the 70th week, is in the mind of Jesus, as Jesus says this, right? Many will be led astray. It is in the mind of Jesus, those prophecy. That is the reason Jesus warns with the Daniel prophecy. Let's read down.
Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me.
Yes,
At that time,
I know that this is very Jewish reference. You will be handed out, hated by all nations for my name's sake. Because of me, you will be, he's speaking to Jewish people, he's speaking to disciples now. Jesus says, everyone is going to hate you. And now let's read.
At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved.
Yes, he's describing this tribulation period. And he says, this is going to be a tough time. There will be, many will fall away. Many will lose their love for the Lord. But who will be saved? One who endures to the end. That is true. Because it is a tribulation period. Those who endure till the end tells that they show the evidence of salvation. Evidence of salvation. And they will be saved. Verse 14.
And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come.
Yes. So again, Jesus says, this is the time the gospel will be proclaimed to all nations. How it could be? Well, you might note if you go to the Revelation, yes, there are two witnesses, mighty witnesses of Jesus Christ in Revelation 11. And then there is 144,000 Jewish missionaries who will be working throughout the world for Jesus Christ. And because of this mighty deeds and miracles of these two witnesses, the entire world will hear about Jesus Christ as they take stand against Antichrist. Right? They will fight with a tooth and nail with the mighty miracles, these two witnesses, that they have the right and authority to make water into blood and shut up heaven without rain, which will be, they're going to, every world, that is what Bible says, will see the witness of these two, their testimony for Jesus Christ. And then 144,000 going around the world, and they are going to be Jewish missionaries, and they're going to preach. That means that is the time the real world evangelism will take place. I do believe that the world will hear Jesus Christ once for all. Everyone will hear, and we know there what happens. Yes. So now we see, go ahead, read it down.
So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand.
Yeah,
Then-
so this is very clear. When you come to verse 15, you know that Jesus was speaking in Matthew 24 by remembering Daniel chapter 9, that 70th week of Daniel. That is in the mind of Jesus, that tribulation period, 7 years. So we have to really understand this Matthew 24 is not the sign of rapture. It is not the sign of rapture. It is the sign of, it is description of the tribulation period, or the sign of the end of the age. Now let's go down, read down.
Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath,
Yeah.
for then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled
Yes.
again.
Once again, Jesus warns, this is the second part of the tribulation, right? After this abomination of desolation, then there will be a great tribulation, right? So if you know the Bible, yes, Bible tells the second part of the tribulation, somehow the great one. It's not that first half is a piece of cake. No, it is a tribulation, definitely. But the second half is going to be severe in nature. And it says, as has not been from the beginning of the world until now. No, and never will be, right? So it is clear that this is talking about tribulation. Now let's read down.
If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or that there he is, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive.
All right, 1 second, one more time. Yes, tribulation period is a time that many false Christ, false prophets, right, false Messiah. In my translation, maybe at ESV says false Christ. I know Sister Jemima was reading from an NIV, false Messiah, right? False prophets. And what do? They perform great signs and wonders. Of course, Antichrist and the false prophet all are there. And they are going to perform huge signs and wonders, right? So this is really tough for those who are in the tribulation period. Why? Because looking at the people have the tendency to go after signs and wonders and prophecy. Signs and wonders and prophecy, right? That's what people want. People will gladly go. Jesus says, wait, don't do it. Don't go. And look at the next phrase of verse 24. Verse 24.
Pastor, one clarity.
Yeah.
Verse 15 talked about the abomination that causes desolation, which
Yeah.
means Antichrist has taken over the temple.
No. He broke the covenant with the
He
Jewish
broke the
people.
covenant and established himself as
Yes.
the key person to
Be
seek
worshipped.
to worship.
Yes, here is what the beginning of the 7 years, he makes a treaty with Israel, and
Yeah.
he is there to care for the temple. He's there like good person. But
My
by the
confusion
middle
is,
of the tribulation, he breaks the covenant and he sets up himself. That
my
is the
confusion,
abomination that causes desolation. Yes.
my confusion is, even after the abomination that causes desolation has been set up,
Mhm.
there will be false prophets
Oh, yes.
and people claiming, here is Jesus, I am Jesus, I'll do miracles.
Yes.
Because he's already standing there
Yeah.
and he is claiming all attention and worship to himself. And still there are people who are claiming to be Jesus.
Once again. Who is claiming now? One is he himself is claiming that he is the Messiah. Number two, if you go look at the Revelation, what is what is the satanic trinity? What is the satanic trinity? You have Satan, Antichrist. Third one is what? The
False prophet.
false prophet. False prophet. So it
Yes.
is. So this even Satan, so Antichrist has his person, the third person in the satanic trinity. We have false prophet. He is going to say, perform signs and wonders. Jesus says there will be false prophets. That means that Satan is going to raise many other people to perform signs and wonders and to prophesy. Yes. And they will do perform signs and wonders. Absolutely, Jesus says. So it is going to be, it is not, Antichrist is not going to say, I am the only or the prophet. And they are not going to say they are the false prophet, right? They are going to say they are the true prophets, all of them. And he encourages others to prophesy. So that's the way it is going to be. Go ahead. Read down.
26.
25.
See, I have told you ahead of time.
Yeah.
So if anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out. Or here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there will the vultures gather.
All right.
Immediately.
Okay. So you have so again, warning is given. Warning is given. Now let's look at verse 29.
Immediately after the distress of those days.
Yeah, I know that in NIV it says distress, but in ESV or in NASB, it's clearly used that word after the tribulation of this, after the tribulation of those days. What happened? Basically, it is the end of the tribulation.
The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is the end war, maybe the last war. That maybe a nuclear war that takes place, and people will not be able to see the sun or the moon because of cosmic distraction. Huge cosmic distraction is taking place in this time period, because of course Revelation warns about this war. Perhaps Armageddon war is the last one, most probably, yes. And that is what we read. That's what we read. Revelation chapter 17 and 18, right? The Armageddon war and the end time war. Then look at verse 30.
30. Yeah. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson.
Once again, I wanted to say that yes, the final regathering of Israel is taking place here in this verse. He will gather the saved people. I think this is a reference to saved Jewish people will be gathered together. Because yes, we know that as we are going to learn later, it is necessary this final gathering is taking place. Yes. Go ahead. Next.
Heaven is elect from the four winds, from the one end of the heavens to the other.
Yeah.
Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. What does it say, Pastor? This generation.
Yes. So, what we are looking at, verse 34, there is two things in you need to understand. You see, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. And heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. So what should we understand concerning this generation? Who is this generation? Yes, the generation at the time of Jesus Christ. Did they experience any of the things what has been said in this? So if you believe that the tribulation has been experienced by the disciples, then everything is over, right? Everything is over. But if that is not, they did not experience everything or a special tribulation here, but they experienced something else, then yes, it might be able. So most of the commentators explain this way. This generation, the generation of Jesus' time, what did they experience? Right? So if you really look and go back to chapter 24 in the beginning of the verse, there is something Jesus talks about, the destruction of the temple. Destruction of the temple. And so maybe this verse points out that what Jesus described, the first thing in Matthew 24, that is the destruction of the temple. So this verse is applied to them. That is what most of the commentators explain. I don't know. I'm not able to explain more than that, because that generation, it is a time of Jesus' generation. What did they experience? They did not experience the tribulation period. We know for sure. They did not experience Jesus after Jesus. They did not experience Daniel 73. I don't think any commentators believe that. So they always say, yes, but they experienced one thing. What is that? In AD 70, they experienced the destruction of the temple. That is the first part of what Jesus said. Not the tribulation, but the first. All right, because there are two questions were asked. Because Jesus said, this stone, this temple will not be there as it is. It's going to be destroyed. And so Jesus explains that in the first two verses. So most of the commentators see that one, or that verse as an explanation for Jesus' generation to experience, that is first century Christian experiencing the destruction of Jewish temple and dispersal of Jewish people. That is what most of the commentators explain. So let's go ahead and the next verse. Yes, verse 36.
But about that hour, about the day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of the Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people
Okay,
were
now
people,
one second. So again, Jesus talks about his coming, and Jesus says, yes, coming. First example he takes is from the Old Testament. Jesus' coming will be like the coming of or the days of Noah. All right, and now let's read.
and they know nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. This is
All right. All right. Now let's look at the language. And the language is that, okay, yes, for as were the days of Noah, so will be the Son of Man. And for the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, right? And now look at the next phrase carefully. They were unaware. Who were unaware? The unbelievers, right? That is very clear. Who were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage? It was the general population there. And 2039 clearly says they were unaware until the flood came. And NIV says took them all away. Look at that one, right? Took them all away. Took them away. And ASB says took them all away. Or ESV says swept them all away. Swept them. So just like that, coming of the Son of Man will be. Now let's look at verse 40.
two men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left.
Yes. Now consider the word taken in verse 40 and verse 39. In verse 39, it says, took them away. Verse 40, now Jesus doesn't want to explain it much. Jesus simply says, will be taken. All right. So, of course, verse 39 says, taken away or took them away for distraction, away from judgment. How do we know? How do we know? Because that is what the verses above says, right? Took them all away. So then two men will be in the field, one will be taken, one will be left, right? Two women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken, one will be left, right? So when Jesus comes at the end of the age, this is what's going to happen. Like Noah's day, because Jesus comes second time to judge the world, to remove unbelievers, to judge them. Because from here onwards, a little down, he's talking about three judgments. He's talking about three judgments. Number one, the judgment of faithful servant or servants, faithful and unfaithful servant, right? And second, the second is the judgment of unfaithful virgins. And the third judgment is the judgment of sheep and goats. So three judgments are coming. Jesus is coming to judge. During the time of Noah, it was a judgment time. Who were taken away? Who were removed? It was the unbelievers who were left, were the believers. Noah and his family were left. All of them were taken away. So those two men will be grinding with in the field or in the mill, one will be left. The believer is left, unbeliever is taken away. But I said last time, yes, maybe because we were overly looking at this passage without the context and the story of rapture and the movies and all, or pastors, everything is in our mind. We suddenly say, okay, these are rapture passages. And I'm saying these are all not rapture passages. This is, as I said, the context, the beginning, there are two things have been said. Two things have been said. Number one is about the destruction of the temple. Number two, the sign of the end of the age. So two things have been said. Destruction of the temple took place AD 70. The end of the age is the Daniel 70th week, which is not taken place. It's going to take place. And it is for the judgment, right? It's for the judgment.
These are the two questions that the disciples asked Jesus.
Yes, two questions. One is the destruction of the temple, because Jesus prophesied.
When will this happen?
Yes. Second, if the King Jesus gave the hint of postponing the kingdom because he's not going to be here, that postponement of the kingdom is not a new thing, which is same thing that is you can read in Acts chapter 1, right? That Jesus will come back to establish the kingdom. The angels are announcing he's going to come back again. So, which is very, very clear. So Jesus addressing in Matthew 24, two questions: destruction of the temple and the end of the age. And destruction of the temple is fulfilled by AD 70. End of the age is the Daniel 70th week. That is what Jesus says. So this passage is not talking about rapture at all. Right? Because this is where many dispensationalists failed, I would say. They often quoted this verse for rapture, which was not wise thing to do. It is not talking about rapture. But as far as rapture, for us, we are going to look at what are the real biblical evidence of rapture. Not a rapture, but a pre-tribulational rapture. We are going to look at as we go further. Now, what I wanted to say, the clarity for the one will be taken for judgment is in Luke. It is in Luke. Right? Luke 17, we read last time, but maybe if you read one more time, nothing will happen to us. So let's look at Luke 17 one more time.
Verse 21.
Maybe, yes, but I cannot tell you. Yeah.
Is it 34?
Okay. Yeah, well, yes, I know, but I'm trying to look at some. Yeah, so verse 26, you will see this, that same thing what have been said in the Matthew 24, right? The distraction at the time of Noah. Look at verse 26 and 27 one more time.
Just as it was in the days of Noah, so also will it be in the days of the Son of Man. People were eating, drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all.
Oh, look at that one. That gives clarity that see, the flood came and taken them away. Luke says, destroyed them all. So it is not the believers who were taken away. Noah was not taken away. It was the unbelievers taken away. Very clear in Luke 27, right? And of course, Luke adds the case of Lot, right? Yes, verse 28, it is going to be just like in the days of Lot, where Matthew doesn't talk about Lot here. And yes, the sulfur rained from heaven, verse 29, but on the day when Lord went from Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from the heaven, destroy them all. So it will be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So again, judgment is being explained, right? And then verse 31, right? One who is on the housetop, his goods with his goods in the house, not come down to take them away. Likewise, let the one who is on the field not turn back. Remember Lord's wife, right? Preserves then. Yes, verse 34 is continuous. That judgment theme is continuing in verse 34. Then I tell you, yes, in that night there will be two in one bed. One will be taken, another will be left, right? See, the judgment theme is continuing. One will be taken, one will be left. And verse 35, two women grinding together, one will be taken, other will be left, right? So yes, there is one is left, one is taken. Now, verse 37 is the real clue for our interpretive problem. What is 37? And they said to him, the disciples said to him, where, Lord? They are taken. Oftentimes it is said they will be taken. Taken. Taken to where is the question. Yes. He said to them, where the corpse is, there vultures will gather. It is not a description of heaven where vultures will gather. It's not the description of heaven. It is a description of judgment. That is, so from the beginning on, those who were taken away for destruction. It's that where the corpse is, there vultures will gather. It is a statement of destruction. So one will be taken to where? Taken to judgment. That is what we read. And that's very clear in the context. So though, I know that this is true, dispensationalists made all this trouble without looking at the context by simply airlifting verses, out of context and saying, the famous things that have been said by everyone, right? That is what been happening, and therefore I think this passage is very clear that this one is taken to judgment. Those who are left on the earth, not destroyed, are believers for the kingdom to come. They are going to enter into the coming kingdom. That is what I think this verse says. All right. So I hope we took enough time to just talk about these issues. All right. So any question on what we have discussed?
Sir,
Yes.
the unbelievers will be taken for the judgment. So, sir, for them also at the time of judgment, they are unbelievers. So everyone is judged as the same, or it will be also a different punishment, or according to their deeds on the earth, because they are unbelievers. They are going to face.
Let me say this one, right? There is two ways we have to look at. This judgment is not the last judgment.
Okay.
The last judgment is white throne judgment at the end of 1,000 years reign. So this is not the white throne judgment. This is the time of removal, right? Judge them, destroy them, send them back to Hades. Send them back. Of course, it's a miniature hell. So there are times that word hell it can be used, but they are sent back to Sheol or Hades for that they will wait for the final judgment.
Okay. Okay.
So that is a time there is a judgment according to the works. Yes, everyone will be in hell, but I do believe that there is a degrees of punishment for the unbelievers. We will definitely look that as we conclude this part of the course, right? So don't worry, we will be looking at that later.
Thank you.
No, now, yes. Okay. So we also looked at 2 Thessalonians and the day of the Lord. Now, so post-tribulation, that is what we are, post-tribulationist argument, right? Inadequate theories of rapture. First, we looked at the partial rapture theory that some people talk about. Only prepared people, faithful people will be there. Those kinds of, that means because there are a lot of baggage with them. Second major view was mid-tribulational rapture theory. I know that there is one more view known as pre-rapture. That is, the rapture will take place not exactly at the mid point of tribulation, but after, little later, toward the end of the tribulation, but not really the end. When there is the last judgment, that is 7 balls judgment is poured out on the earth. The rapture will take place just before the ball judgment. There is another argument among some people, which I don't think we need to spend time. So that's the reason I have not given. So yesterday we started talking about post-tribulational rapture theory. Post-tribulational rapture theory. So post-tribulationalism basically argues this. What do they say? Post-tribulationalism argues that Olivet Discourse, the passage that we read today, implies that the saints will go through the tribulation and seek deliverance during this event, and even possesses signs of the coming of Christ for the Spirit. They believe, post-tribulationists believe, that yes, we have the signs. We know when Christ will come, right? So they were, their arguments were that the trumpet of Matthew 24:31 does not. All right. So when they say that tribulation, during the tribulation, yes, church will be here on this earth during the tribulation, and saints will go through the tribulation. First of all, our argument, or what I wanted to argue here, is this: trumpet of Matthew 24 does not necessarily share the identity with the trumpet of 1 Corinthians 15:52. It is different. We already discussed. Second was that the removal of that the Olivet Discourse saints anticipated was not their own removal, but the removal of the unregenerate. All right. So those who remain are gathered together for eternal bliss. So I am saying we don't believe, or I don't believe, that those who are taken away are saints. They are unbelievers. The next, individuals being rescued here are not described as church saints, but rather they are Jewish remnant. The elect were the Jewish remnant, that gathering the elect from the four corners to Jerusalem, to Israel, is a reference. Gathering people like that is a reference to a regathering of Jewish people, right? So I know that, yes, covenant theologians and other people have the tendency to say that there is only one classified, the redeemed of all ages, as the church. But I clearly make a difference between the ecclesiastical body from a redeemed body of Christ. Yes, the redeemed body of Christ can include from Adam till the last person, but the ecclesiastical body is different, which is started, made by baptism of the Holy Spirit, which was not in the Old Testament, which began on the day of Pentecost, which is particularly for the church in forming, building the church. So therefore, Matthew 24, I am saying, is not talking about the church. Whereas I know that post-tribulationists to believe that Matthew 24 is a reference to church. And then second argument for the post-tribulationalist was that 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 2 implies that the day of the Lord precedes the rapture. Day of the Lord comes first, then the rapture. That means day of the Lord talks about tribulation. So after tribulation, the rapture comes. So my answer to that is that this understanding of the day of the Lord is too narrow. Day of the Lord is not simply a reference to rapture. It begins from rapture through tribulation, even in millennial kingdom. Bible describes as the day of the Lord. So I say here, yes, historical day of the Lord is used for historical events and for eschatological events. For example, tribulation, rapture, judgment, the seat of Christ, Armageddon, millennium, Zechariah chapter 14 verse 9, and dissolution of heaven and earth are all have got reference to day of the Lord. If we take that argument of post-tribulationalism, then we have to say rapture will take place only after millennial kingdom, because the day of the Lord includes even the dissolution of heaven and earth. So the idea is that rapture will take place only after the day of the Lord is not biblical. And one more thing I wanted to say with the 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, many people have a problem in interpreting that. I'm saying the 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the main theme is not, okay, these are the signs of the rapture, first apostasy will take place, then blah, 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 blah. That's the main theme is not to prove that, the signs of rapture. The main issue was that Paul wants to say to Thessalonians that they had not missed the rapture. Because when God's people died because of persecution, they thought that what Jesus said about the tribulation and the everything is, they thought that the tribulation already has happened. We missed the rapture. Tribulation happened, we missed the rapture. So Paul wants to say, no, you did not. So he's basically arguing from the greater to smaller. Since the day of the Lord was still future, the rapture also still future. Don't worry, that's what he was saying. Now, today I wanted to talk about the verse 17 of 1 Thessalonians 4, right? The verb used in 1 Thessalonians 4:17 sometimes denotes a procession to meet a party and then accompany him on his entry. This is the third argument of post-tribulationalist. So before we go there, let's take maybe a 5 minutes break, and we discuss this argument of post-tribulationalist. 1 Thessalonians 4:17. So we'll take a 5 minutes break. Just 5 minutes, right? And I will be back.
No.
All right. Let's continue our discussion here. All right. First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17. This is the another argument of post-tribulationists, those who believe the church will go through tribulation, argue the verb used in 4 verse 17 denotes a procession to meet a party and then accompany him on his entry. Let's read 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17.
Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will always be with the Lord.
All right, that passage we read, as you read, now you heard the word meet, right? To meet. The word for meet, to meet someone, the word is apantano, or rightly the word used there is apendesis, right? So it has come from the verb apantano. So what is the argument of the post-tribulationalist? They argue that word meet actually denotes what? What it denotes? A procession to meet a party and then accompany him on his entry, right? It is like usually the scenario is that, yes, when there is a marriage happens, all right, the attendants or friends will go and meet the groom and accompany the groom, right? That is the idea. So go meet, someone is coming from a far place, you go and meet him, not right at your house, but far, and meet him and come with him back to your home. Come back to your home. So what is post-tribulationist would say? Yeah, there is a rapture. There is rapture. But for post-tribulationism, most of them, the rapture takes place at the end of the tribulation period. How? Jesus will come in the cloud. We will go and meet him in the air and come back with him right just at the same time. We will be coming back to the earth with Jesus. So we go there to greet him, to meet him, and come back with him. Now, my point is that the Greek word, yes, it is right. There are sometimes that word is used for that type of scenario, right? In a Jewish marriage context, especially. But I am saying sometimes it does not. For example, Luke 17:12. Luke 17:12.
And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers
Who stood at
who stood at a distance.
Yeah, so that again, the same Greek word is used there. He met. Yes, it is a pantos, same Greek word. It doesn't that to go there to welcome someone and come back with him. You don't have that kind of meaning. So I don't think that always that's what it means. Saying that always this verb has the same meaning, I don't think it warrants. Of course, in John 4:51 also, the point is the same. So I'm saying the word meet the Lord in the air, and that word meet is a description of meeting him and accompanying him back to the place, not necessarily the meaning all the time. Now, I also wanted to add a few more things to say the post-tribulation's argument is not so right. Second is, John 14:3 implies that the destination of those raptured is not the earth, but the Father's house, where Christ is currently preparing a place for us, from which he will arrive. So Jesus is not preparing a place now on the earth, but he's preparing a place for us in heaven. We meet the Lord in the air, and we are going back to the Father's place. We are not going to stay in the mid-air. Some people think in that way. We are going to be in the Father's place. All right? So that's one thing. Another, if you believe that rapture is at the end of the tribulation, another problem is, so when will be the judgment seat of Christ? You know, there are verses in the Bible that talks about judgment seat of Christ. Judgment seat of Christ should occur after the rapture. And the marriage of the Lamb should take after the rapture, which should precede the second coming, because Revelation 19 verse 7, you know what we read, if you happen to read Revelation chapter 19, there John sees the church, right, already married. This is what we read in Revelation chapter 19 verse 7. The marriage of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready, right? And so it has come, and it is, or she is ready. So what do you understand that this the judgment seat of Christ, marriage of the Lamb, if you read down, should take place before second coming. Before second coming. Post-tribulationist argument doesn't provide a time for the judgment seat of Christ. If you follow pre-tribulation, then you have the 7 years taken for judgment seat of Christ and for the marriage, right? Marriage in heaven, the feast is on the earth, right? Now, the next problem, that is the biggest problem. I think most of the post-tribulationalist theologians and commentators accepted this dilemma. What is that dilemma? That dilemma is this: the scenario cannot account for millennial population. Millennial population. That is, you read Zechariah chapter 8, Isaiah chapter 65, speak of saints in their natural bodies in the millennium. All right? Natural bodies in the millennium. Now, if at the rapture, our bodies are changed and glorified, and all the unregenerate put to death, because they think that Matthew 24:41, yes, all the unregenerate, will be killed. The question is, who will then populate the millennial kingdom? Because in Revelation chapter 20 verse 8, at the end of the millennial kingdom, there will be many people following Satan. How can you have, if everyone in the millennial kingdom are, because, see, this is what the problem. The problem is that according to post-tribulationalism, they believe the resurrection will take place. All the saved will be resurrected at the end of the tribulation period. All right? All the saved will be saved, but if they're dead, all of them will be resurrected at the end of the tribulation. And those genuine believers who are alive at that time will be transformed, right? Will be transformed to receive Jesus Christ. All the unbelievers will be put to be killed and put to hell. So the question will be, is this, then how come there are unbelievers in the millennial kingdom? If all the unbelievers are removed, all believers who are dead are resurrected, and all the living people, living believers are changed, transformed, receive a glorified body, then how can there be unbelievers? That would be a legitimate question which is accepted by many post-tribulation. Whence come the nations who will be deceived by Satan at the close of the millennium? When it is going to be? Revelation chapter 20 verse 8 says that yes, there is going to be unbelievers at the end of the millennium. How can that happen? Douglas Moo is a great scholar of the post-tribulationalist view in the three views on the rapture debate, admits the seriousness of this problem, but then goes on to suggest that unbelievers may enter into the millennium, and the large number of Jews at the second coming look on him who they pierce in faith, enter in the millennium, non-glorified bodies. So that means there is a problem. He thinks that some Jewish people will enter with the natural body, right? This explanation is meager. In fact, conflict with the data of Matthew 24:41 and the presence of nations in Revelation chapter 20. But Douglas Moo thinks that Jewish people will enter with the natural bodies. But if you take the theory that all will be raised, all genuine Christian will be raised from the dead, and all those who are alive, genuine believers, will be transformed, then giving some portion to Jewish people, Jewish believers, is not, I don't think it is logical. It doesn't fit. So it is also a problem for post-tribulationism. All right. So that is the idea that, the word, when they say this is a description of a marriage party accompanying, so go and meet the bridegroom and accompany him, come back. So not a 7 years. So it doesn't happen before the 7 years. It happens after the 7 years. That is what post-tribulationism says. But I don't think, I don't get how they will solve the problem of unbelievers in the millennial kingdom in their scheme of things. Now, I wanted to talk about another verse. 2 Thessalonians, post-tribulationists argue from verse 1, 6 to 7 says that church saints will be given rest at the revelation of Jesus Christ in power and glory. Right? What are they going to get? Church saints, because they are going to get the rest. Now, the coming of Christ must be viewed as a complex of events that occurs in stages, not an event. Believers can expect rest at the first stage is certainly true, but it is also true that ultimate satisfaction comes when God deals out retribution at the second phase against those who are persecuted believers. That is what Revelation clearly says. The cry in heaven, where the blood of the saints cry for revenge. And so it's not a big argument, but at least post-tribulationists would argue that saints are given rest at the revelation. Yes, maybe a rest during the tribulation, but then later, then it's not really a rest. Maybe it's a ruling is going on in the millennial kingdom. It's not. I don't think it is going to be simply we sit and sleep in the millennial kingdom. Maybe there's a shallow argument, even from post-tribulation, or I don't think it's much to say here, but at least they argue that way. In the millennial kingdom, church saints is going to get rest. Rest, yes, rest from the toils of this world, but it is a new world order, and there is work. All right.